Hello and welcome to Hixxy Studio. In this video I am going to show you how to make this beautiful birthday card. Really easy to make, and it's one you can almost kind of bulk make because you can do all your backgrounds and then cut's really simple. So we are using the Creative Expressions Paper Cuts Collection Jasmine Edger. And we are using the Happy Birthday comes from this first edition craft set of sentiments. So it's the Happy Birthday one we're using. And we are going to make the background using Pixie Sparkles. But again, if you prefer inking your backgrounds or if you prefer painting or just using pattern papers, it works equally well. So we're going to start with making the cut. I usually start with the pixies, but I'm going to do that in a moment. So we're going to make this cut here first. We'll just put that to one side. So I have my card blank. It's roughly 6 inches. When I tend to make my own card blanks like this from an A4 sheet, I cut it down to 6 inches. But it isn't long enough to do 6 inches, so I tend to score at 5 7/8. It's just a smidge short of being 6 by 6, but it works. So this is our die, and rather than just cutting it vertically, which you can, there's nothing to stop you doing a vertical cut. It works in the same way. You could do it further over. You'd have more of your background showing. But I thought it'd be nice to see a different way to do it. So I'm taking my ruler and a pencil, and I'm going to draw a very light pencil line from corner to corner. Now, make sure that the card opens that way and that you've drawn it there. When I first did it, I suddenly realised what was going to happen. That was going to be a bit of a disaster. So I have my line. And the reason I have my line is because with these edger type dies, excuse me, I can see I've got bits in my die. I'm just going to pop them out. With these edger type dies, part of the die will cut into the card and part of the die will cut out of the card. And so you need to know where that sort of cut-off line is, what's going to be in the card, what's going to be out the card. On the die itself, you can see it with this line here and this end here. So this part of the die is going to cut out and this part is going to cut in. Obviously, that'll be flipped when we go over. Now, the problem you have is when I turn the die over, those lines aren't there. So what I've done with a Sharpie is I've marked on the die where those cutting lines are. And that means when I come to put it now on my line, I can see where I need to line it up. Okay. Now, you can put it further up that way, further down that way, but need to make sure that your end of your cutting edges are going to be in line with this so you get a nice diagonal. Okay, now we are going to open this card up in a moment because obviously we don't want to cut right the way through. I'm going to put tape on this side. This is the side of the card that will be discarded. It'll be the side that's cut out. And then we don't get any imprints or sticky bits on that side of the card. We do need to open the card back out because if you don't, then you're going to, or it will attempt to cut through. It may get through, it might not with it being such an intricate die, but you don't want that. You do not want it cutting through. So I'm going to put this on our plate. We've got our plastic shim and our magnetic shim and then our top plate. Okay, and I'm going to make sure I've got that all lined up and off it goes through. So this is a big part of the card done. Once this is cut, the next part is just the nice messy fun bit of creating your background. So we come to that side. Okay, bit of a messy plate by the look of it. Okay, now you can see where I didn't tape it down, this is already lifted, which is fine. What we need to do now is to remove the tape from this side. And remember, this is the bit of card that's going, so if it's left a sticky residue or it's imprinted, it's not the end of the world, because we're going to discard this. Okay. It does depend on the pressure of your machine. Some machines will exert much more pressure, which pushes the tape further onto the card. Oh, that bit's got a little bit caught. Let's try this end. See if we can get from this end. Sort of wanting to come off there. Hopefully when we lift this. There we go. Lift. Now this die has a lot of little very delicate bits here. So as you're easing it out of the die, be careful. I'm going to start by just going over the die, and you can see I've already got a few pieces out. So I'm now going to look from the back so that I'm not trying to force pieces out that got caught, because sometimes these bits will get caught on the delicate little bits that we don't want to be broken. So I'm going to come back this way and gently ease it out. Here we go. There we go. It's all out now. So we need to cut along our diagonal line that we drew earlier, that cut, and along the diagonal line that we drew earlier to that cut. Okay, and there we have our edger. Just need to make sure and carefully at any little bits that are still in the die, but I think that was it. Excellent. Okay, we'll just remove all our bits from here. And I am going to get my bone folder back out onto that. Just give it a really good crease before we start doing anything else, because obviously it's been pushed through the machine again when it was open. So in another bit, I start getting picky now. In another tiny little bit left in. Okay, right. I'm going to put that to one side, ready for when we've made our background. So let me just bring this one back in. I'm going to use a different Pixie Sparkle to ones I've used on videos before. This one's called Purple Rainstorm. Yes, Purple Rainstorm. And you can see the purple here. But it was quite interesting when I first used it, that you can see there's a lot of blue pigment and a lot of sort of pinky red. There doesn't seem to be any specifically purple pigment. It needs to combine in order to make that purple. So let's see how we are going to do that. So I need a piece of card. I'm not going to do an A4 sheet. I don't need it. However, if you were making bulk making these, or if you were just wanted to make extra backgrounds, then by all means go ahead and do an A4 sheet. So I have my very manky station here to try and reduce the mess. So I am going to start by giving this piece of card a very quick little spray of water, and then I'm going to turn it over, and you can see already that's what happens as soon as it starts to get wet. The card starts to go like this, and what will happen if you do this, put the sparkle straight onto a dry card, it will bow over. And that's okay, because you can get some lovely runoff effects before it then comes back down. But if you don't want that, then I would suggest you just spray your card before you start. So here's our Pixie Sparkles. You may not have seen them before. If you haven't, there's a little powder in here. There are Pixie powders, which are just the pigments. And then these are Pixie Sparkles, which have the pigment and a glitter or a glittery micro effect. So, and they are activated by water. So what I'm going to do, excuse me, is I'm just going to gently tap the bottom of the pot Now, actually, what I am going to do before I do is I'm going to give it a little bit of a shake, just to make sure I've got all the pigments mixed. Now, you can already see there's some blue, very, very definite blue on there, and definite pink. And I was quite surprised when I first brought this one up, because I was thinking this is supposed to be purple. And what it needs really is a fair bit of water on it, which will then cause the blue and the pink to combine. There's a fair bit of water, Carole, not a fair bit of Pixie Sparkles. But hey ho. Right, so let's start giving it a spray. You can see where the card was already damp, it started to react. So here we go. You can see what I mean. A lot of blue in there. Okay. So what I found was I really needed to get it wet to the point where it starts to move, so that the colours are moving into each other. That said, the bluey pinky effect is lovely. If you don't really want it, if you're not worried about it being particularly purple, then by all means don't put on as much water as I have. So I would probably now start to play with that, get it to move around. And you can see that already in here we're getting more purpley tones. Probably do with a bit more water there. I'm obviously not going to be able to use this one now, because it's too wet. I also I know when I did the one for the card, I had a lot more Pixie Sparkles on this, so I think I went back in and tapped. So, but it's entirely up to you as to what effect, and you won't get the same every time. So we're going to put that to one side and allow that to dry in its own time. And then I'm going, because when I did the card, I did a whole sheet. So I've got the other half of the sheet, and I'm hoping that you can see here. And compared to the one I had just then, I put a lot more Pixie Sparkles on, and because it ran and mixed, that's where we're getting the more purple. It is a very pinky purple, but it is still a purple. Okay. That said, there is a lot of that beautiful blue there too. So literally all we need to do now is to cut a piece for our background, and that's, I think, going to fit perfectly there. So we're going to measure that up. And so when I was making this, I did consider doing a little bit of inking around the edge and possibly around here. I didn't in the end, but that is always a possibility if you want. I know some people don't particularly like a lot of white open space, so you could sort of ink in with and I'd say you're probably looking at maybe Blueprint Sketch and Picked Raspberry, or even Kitsch Flamingo would tone in well with those if you did want to do a bit of inking. Sorry, I always talk inks in terms of distress, because distress is my life. In terms of all my colouring stuff, inks, oxide, crayons. Hello. You might be able to hear a little patter of footsteps. That's Sally. She's off again. She's got no treats, so she's not hanging around. We've not got any treats for us. So she's like, yeah. Oh. Yes, right. Back up the stairs. You gotta love her. Okay. So there we go. So that bit's going to fit in the back, and then a little off cut. I'm going to use the Happy Birthday die on, if I can find what I've done with it yet. So here we go. This is just a nice little happy birthday. You could drop shadow it if you wanted, but we're just going to go with cutting it straight out of here. That's why I'm looking for my tape. So we're going to put that on. Oh, just going to clean off my board. Put this on. We need our plastic, our magnetic, and our top plate. And then we're going to just put that through. If you do have a Gemini and you have the junior plates, they do fit sideways through that's rather a big plate for one little die. So that is an option, but it still works. No. Here we go. Right, so here's our sentiment. Let's take it out of that bit of card. And we use the brush, which gets rid of a lot of it and helps start to release the sentiment itself. In fact, yeah, already out. Pop a little Y. There we go. So we're going to stick that on. I think that's some lovely colours from this Pixie Sparkles. So first thing we're going to do then, see if the glue's playing today. Oh yes, it's like, yep, I'm there, I'm coming out. So we're going to, now you've probably noticed this is a little bit warped. There is no harm if you're sort of bulk making your backgrounds. Obviously not when they're completely wet, but when they're, you know, in that almost dry, still slightly damp, is putting them under something heavy. Now what I tend to do when I have the time is I've got all my different cards in sort of the storage boxes, and so I will put them under there and leave them, and sometimes forget about them, but leave them there, and then as they finish drying, they're drying flat. Now all I'm doing is I just put that over because it stops me then spreading Pixie Sparkles across the whole world, just on the back of there. Okay, so that's now there, and tape, yeah, bit of tape. We're going to do the sentiment and get the tweezers, a little bit, blot it on. I'm going to just dab. Glue's coming out quite thickly there, so I definitely need to make sure that I have dabbed that off. And I'm going to put it there. Now you could finish this off with a ribbon. I chosen to use a few little pearls, back pearls there, just to because we've got like thirds. We've got one thing here, one here, and it will balance it out if we have something at the top. Like I said, that could be a ribbon. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some little flat back pearls just to finish this card off. Not that many, but I'm going to also get my little, I decant some glue into a smaller fine nozzle, just when I want a little bit more control. And then I'm going to do it in a corner sort of formation, so 5 of the pearls in a little corner formation. I'm just going to grab this tool, invaluable for picking up. She says not being able to pick anything up. There we go. Warm it up a little bit. There we go. All it is I think it's just wax in there. As the wax is warm, it just warm enough just to pick up, but not so much that you can't then get it to release. So there we have our happy birthday card using our Paper Cuts collection, Jasmine Edger, and some gorgeous Pixie Sparkles. Thank you for joining me.